Welcome, eCom Logistics Nation. Thank you for joining today's episode. We're on a mission to share e-commerce logistics insights, trends, successes, and challenges from the leaders and innovators in our space.
Regardless of the size, every brand has similar challenges. And I like to tell them the most important thing in the contract is not in the contract. So it's like any long-term marriage or partnership, the ability to get along, work together when problems happen. That's where things go left.
Welcome to the eCom Logistics Podcast. We're here once again at Shop Talk. Excited to be joined by Scott Weiss, Vice President, Technical Sales, Warehousing, and Distribution Service at Maersk. Scott, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. As a way of getting started, can you share a little bit about yourself and your experience in the supply chain space?
Sure. I've been in the global supply chain industry since 1996, so almost 30 years. I'm the Vice President of Technical Sales for Maersk. Maersk has approximately 158 warehouses in North America. So I help oversee all of our omni-channel and eCom fulfillment operations across North America.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you for joining us today, and start on a stat I'm not very proud of, having been in the space for a very long time, but the reality is over 50%, or the majority of relationships between brands and 3PLs end in a divorce. And we all have to work hard to fix that and to right the ship. But love the fact that you've been in the space for so long. Certainly with your role leading technical sales, you see a lot, you hear a lot. You're talking to companies that are exploring a new 3PL partner. So why do you think that percentage is so high? And any thoughts and advice to brands and retailers on how to look for a strategic partner?
Yeah, and we deal with brands of all sizes, startups to Fortune 500 publicly traded companies. And, regardless of the size, every brand has similar challenges. And I like to tell them the most important thing in the contract is not in the contract. So it's like any long-term marriage or partnership, the ability to get along, work together when problems happen. That's where things go left. That's one thing. And we always know in any partnership, especially warehousing, problems happen. Things happen that we didn't foresee. And then the management, the people involved in the day-to-day is so key. If you have high turnover, and it goes both ways. The customer could have high turnover. If you have poor forecasting and planning, maybe you gave the profile information to the 3PL. 3PL didn't ask the right questions, or the data wasn't accurate, you're going to have problems long term. So the most important thing in the contract is not in the contract. And so during that research and discovery phase, it's very important to look for any of those red flags from both sides.
I think that's an amazing point. And, we lead the selection process for a bunch of mid-market brands as they're looking to find, a new 3PL partner. And what we're hearing now more than ever is, price will figure out. Price is going to be market competitive. No one's going to be way overpriced. That will make sense. Give me operational excellence. Give me a strong technology integration. Make sure those two boxes are checked. And equally important, tell me about your account management structure. You're right. We don't live in a perfect industry. There is no 100% SLA. So talk to me about maybe what you've seen be a successful relationship from, how escalations take place. What type of, is it a call center that works best, when issues arise? Is it dedicated account management? Like, what have you seen be really successful?
Well, I always like to tell the customer, we're interviewing you just as much as you're interviewing us. So that's the first step, to make sure as a 3PL that you, the customer, are actually a good fit for us. And not every customer is a good fit, whether it's the vertical they're in, the size they're in, their profile. It could be wholesale and you only do eCom, or it could be eCom and you only do wholesale. So that's the first step. So once you've arrived at the agreement, the partnership's in place, I also like to tell customers, you want your 3PL to do much more than just fulfill orders. You want them to add value by giving best practices. That's the value of a 3PL. We're handling all these other brands. So what is working for the other brands? What we're doing, no need to recreate the wheel. So the great 3PLs are going to add a lot more value and make you better by bringing those best practices to your organization. That would be one thing. Then the account management is very key. Is it just, one day-to-day person that you're talking to, or someone like, a great 3PL can have a lot more structure, make you better, have an account manager, have continuous improvement, tracking the SLAs and KPIs, and just make you a better operation by adding a lot more dimension than just getting API orders, picking a unit. I always like to say that's the easy part of the relationship, is picking the eaches. You got to add value, and you got to have these open discussions, quarterly business reviews, monthly SLI and KPIs, annual business reviews. It's a partnership. It's a marriage. You're an extension of the company. And so one of the things we do that is just my favorite part is whiteboarding sessions with these brands, where our supply chain design team will fly into their corporate office. We'll, turn the lights off, lock the door for 6 hours, and we'll flow their global supply chain. And invariably, there's going to be 5 or 6 things that we see that they're doing today that they shouldn't be doing, or suggestions we can have to make them better. And that could be millions of dollars of savings. So maybe, we were 5 cents more per order on the fulfillment side, but we're able to save them millions of dollars or create brand loyalty and great customer experience. So that's the difference between a good 3PL and a great 3PL.
And something really interesting what you just said, and this is an observation I've had as well in the market, is 3PLs sit in such a good position to be the supply chain advisors to mid-market brands, because dealing with the large organizations that have supply chain teams, or that have dedicated analysts for like inventory, dedicated analysts for like just relationship management, etc., versus brands that you deal with, even 100 million, 200, 300 million GMV brand, they don't know supply chain, right? Like, they have put in blood, sweat, and tears into making this business work. And 3PLs actually sit in a really good position to provide them advisory. I think there is not enough consultative work that is going on. Exactly that, right? Like, you could literally save millions of dollars by just making a slight change. Like, give them a network analysis, or, being able to...
we do heat map, center of gravity analysis. Should I be in the middle of the country? Should I have 2 DCs? Should I have 3? Network optimization models. 3PLs can offer all of that. And you're right. The mid-tier, they're great at marketing and selling product. And they'd probably be the first to tell you they're not great at logistics.
And they don't need to be. That's why we exist, right?
That's why this market's here.
Yeah, because most of the analysis and service that is provided, at least what I've seen in the market, is like, I'll give you a great UI tool where you can see your orders and yada, yada, yada. But that's supply chain optimization and how you should be doing. And I think there is more opportunities going beyond we talk a lot about shipping, right? Breaking down some of the hypotheses that they have around shipping as well, right? Like, helping them out. 3PLs are seeing all of these other brands, what's working in the market, what's not working in the market, in a consultative way, working with these brands. I think more of this needs to be happening in the market for sure.
Yeah, I like to call us trusted advisors, your in-house consultants.
Yeah.
And it comes back to, working with brands, is we don't want account management to be reactive. We want it to be proactive. So yes, solve the issues and problems that occur, because again, it's imperfect, but give me that proactive information. Give me some nuggets of information that could help me make some meaningful changes. And, Scott, one of the things we were talking about that I think you have an interesting perspective. And again, people are going to probably listen to this podcast and say, Maersk, I didn't realize they did e-commerce fulfillment. Right. I know about the container shipments and everything.
I like to say the great thing is we're a great steamship line, and the bad thing is we're a great steamship line.
Yeah.
But I think, through your discovery and conversations, with clientele and prospects, helping them on the complete journey. So maybe you could talk a little bit about, what clients are asking for with a partner when it comes to helping me source my product all the way through making a delivery to the final customer.
Yeah, the client is asking for that. And I would say it's regardless of the size. You
Yeah.
would be amazed. Publicly traded Fortune 500, they need just as much help as the mid-tier to startup. It's all relative.
Absolutely.
But it really starts, questions like, where should my DC be? Well, we need to look at the inbound from Asia. Where's your factories? Are they in Europe? What about your outbound?
Exactly.
Let's look at that heat map and see where your penetration is. It in the Northeast? Are you bigger in the South? So to answer anybody's question as they're looking at it, you need to look at the whole picture: inbound, real estate, labor, and outbound before you can give them the answer. And so that global supply chain, looking at that whole piece of the puzzle, is the only way you're going to give the best possible answer and recommendations, by looking at all of that. And, Maersk is fortunate because we do offer services from factory to door, asset based. So we're unique because we have those services, and we can see the gauge of, the transit time and the cost from China to LA versus Savannah, or the outbound small parcel. Is it 2 days from Columbus and you get to hit the whole country? We can look at all those scenarios, and you really do need to look at the whole picture of the global supply chain to get the best possible answers these days.
Do you, from a consultative standpoint, is it different departments, or as far as the client is concerned, you are essentially working, one account, one management to say, okay, I'm also going to help you with ocean freight. I'm also going to help you with trucking, and I'll also help you with the e-commerce.
Yeah, it's the way,
because I see a lot of that, right? Like it's like, oh, for this you got to talk
5
to that
different
account manager,
salespeople,
then you got to
and
talk to that person, right?
Maersk
Dan knows all about
We talked
it.
about that last night.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Maersk, I think, has really been smart. It's a global integrator strategy from factory to door. And the way we're set up is there's one global account manager for that customer. So they're the main point of contact. And then when we have, let's say, a warehouse opportunity, I'm the warehouse technical sales expert that's brought into the discussion. I live and breathe warehousing. I call them connectors.
Makes sense.
And so they connect with the trucking, with a small parcel. Maybe they need a warehouse in Asia. We have LF Logistics that we just acquired. So we have experts for each of the subjects that the customer needs, and it seems to work really well.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Maybe one of the things that I know a lot of brands and retailers is, searching for a new provider, or maybe a provider for the first time, or maybe they actually do their own fulfillment. They're trying to understand what is the right number of nodes I should have in my network. And again, I think that certainly correlates to knowing your customer and what that end customer experience requirement is, whether it's a 2-day delivery, 5 days, 7-day, whatever it might be. But what are you seeing on that front? I think there was this kind of immediate expansion of nodes in a network when Amazon came out with, 2-day Prime, and everyone was trying to match that and open up, 3, 4, 5 node networks. We're seeing, at least I'm seeing to an extent, a little bit of a consolidation there because there were some issues. So maybe just talk about maybe the pros and cons of a single node network versus multi-node that you've been seeing in the market.
I mean, I would say the 3PL world, it's not a one size fits all model. And it really varies by customer. So as an example, a footwear, apparel, and accessory customer that has 50,000 active SKUs, very challenging to manage multiple inventories. A cosmetic company that might have 300 active SKUs, more feasible and realistic to have multiple SKUs.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. Your SKU count is the first thing to look at. The next thing I really always look at is who's paying for the outbound freight. So in the eCom world, it's mostly really prepaid. You're paying, it's shipping under your account or our account. So that's a big factor of the cost of the outbound transportation, because that's more than the fulfillment cost, a lot more.
Yeah.
But what if you have collect payment with your retailers and it's wholesale and your omni-channel? Then it makes sense to look at the closest port of entry, like a Savannah or an LA, Southern California. So that's, some brands are 100% D2C. Many are omni-channel that have the collect and the prepaid, and some are only collect. And so that's a big factor. And then the third one is, let's assume you have all this prepaid Your outbound freight costs a lot. What is important to you? Is it the cost or the transit time? Some customers commit to their customers 2-day transit time. Then the multiple DCs is more in play, while others say, I have a product that people can live with getting it in a week, and I want the low cost solution. Then maybe the one DC models in play. What we see for the multi DC models are East Coast and West Coast primarily. Not many have more than 2 DCs. And then if it's a 1 DC model for D2C, the Midwest becomes very attractive due to lower real estate costs and hitting the whole US in 2 to 3 days.
Awesome advice. That makes a lot of sense. I know, Ninad, you were wanting to jump in on all things automation and robotics.
Yeah, specifically robotics, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's the vantage point? Like, are the customers asking for robotics?
Yes, absolutely.
Should the customers be asking for robotics? Like, shouldn't they be asking for the dollars and cents, right? And efficiency is your job, but why are the customers asking for
There's
robotics?
a perception that there's a labor shortage, which certainly after COVID there was, and there still is for a lot of warehouse providers to find labor. The cost of labor keeps going up. It's not going to go down.
Did you hear that stat yesterday? Came out just on that particular note was they said Amazon's going through so much labor attrition that in 2 years, they will have run out of workforce.
Unless they rehire.
No, the workforce would be done. Like you go through
Just
attrition
churned.
and you burn to a point where there is no one left that wants to come and
wants
work
to
for
work
you.
for you.
Wow.
Well, I would add on that note, let me add that because employee retention, I've seen a big increase for companies that have their own warehousing, 3PLs. The value of treating an employee and taking care of them has never been higher. That's one thing that really came out of COVID that companies, frankly, did not pay as much attention to before. Whether it's barbecues, promotions, certificates. So I'm really happy to see that. But that being said, robotics and automation is a very common request.
Yeah.
We have a whole global innovation center. We're actually opening up in Jersey City next month. We have about 24 different initiatives, proof of concepts of robotics, goods to person, fetch robotics, fabric robotics. So lots of all these initiatives. But the key here is it isn't needed for everybody. The key is what works best for your specific needs, Mr. and Mrs. Customer, not a one size, but we have all these, 24 different options that we look at and we see what is the payback, what's the productivity increases, and we present that to the customer. And there's certainly some customers that don't need automation.
Yeah.
But there's many that do, and it's probably a number one question we're asked these days from the customer. There's that perception that the prices are going up. They're not as reliable.
Makes sense.
And it is a very real issue, but a 3PL or a warehouse provider that takes care and really stresses employee, it's a balance between the two.
I agree, right? Well, all I wanted to, bring up was the fact that customers shouldn't be dictating that, right? Like it should be other than like you got capital investment in automation, right? Then you got pain share, gain share. It starts making sense. The customer says, let's go put a $5 million automation piece as an example, right? But when it comes to robotics, right? Like most of it is robotics as a service.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's on demand. If the 3PL thinks that's the right thing to do, they'll just do it, right? But the customers will definitely want the cool factor. And I'm sure from a selling perspective, it helps. Having robots help.
So what we do, what I found helpful is we show them a manual solution, semi-automated solution, could be conveyors, and then a fully automated solution for those that might be in that category. And we show them the productivity difference, the CapEx startup difference, and the number of employees. And then we help them make together an informed decision. We don't just say, this is our solution, take it or leave it. We present them with options.
Absolutely.
And we find that to work really well.
Makes all the sense in the world.
Well, I apologize from talking about sexy robotics to dirty pallets, but Scott, we were talking about this earlier today, and you're in a lot of warehouses, right? You go and you get to tour a lot of facilities, and one of the things you're seeing more often than not is inventory that's been sitting for years, and not just 1, 2, you're talking 5, 6, 7 years. And we've got all the technology, we have all the reporting and insights, and the cost of automation is really high. The last thing you want to be doing is jamming inventory, stale inventory, into a highly automated facility. So maybe people are pulling it out and putting it in reserve locations, or offsite locations. But what are you seeing? Why is that actually even happening in 2023? And your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I've never seen more excess inventory in my entire 25-year plus career. I always tell every customer, you're not alone, because
Right.
it's everybody, from the line at the port, everybody over ordered. And so the reasons that I see, and I like to tell customers, don't fall in love with your inventory. So that's number one. The sales team likes to fall in love with the inventory. Number two is the long lead time of the global supply chain. So as we have this podcast today, it's March, and the lead time for most brands is around 6 months. And so economic uncertainty was a big theme I heard at the recent TPM conference. What is the economy going to be like 6 months from now? Who really knows?
Yeah.
And so that global logistics lead time has created really big challenges on trying to get your crystal ball out on what you should order. And then the sales team just falling in love with the inventory and say, it didn't sell last year, but it's going to sell this year. And the third reason is the lack of focus on what those costs are of carrying the excess inventory, putting a dollar amount on that. Owner once told me many years ago, that's cash sitting there on the warehouse floor.
Right.
I think a big miss is brands just putting a dollar amount of paying storage and taking up space for 5 years, because believe me, I've seen recently 5 years, 6 years, 7 years inventory sitting there. It's pretty amazing and mind blowing, but it's true.
Well, they're hoping for some trend to come back. I would imagine. Well, listen, Scott, really, really appreciate you joining us today. Want to give you the opportunity to let everyone know, how they could learn more, how they could reach out to you, how they can learn more about Maersk e-commerce fulfillment solution.
If you go on Maersk.com, Maersk.com, we have a whole e-com fulfillment division. Like I said, warehouse e-com fulfillment centers all over North America, as well as Canada and Mexico. Yeah, just great websites, got all of our locations, and happy to reach out directly to me. I'm based in Los Angeles, so I'll take you out to lunch anytime.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Be sure to subscribe to the podcast to maximize your supply chain. Available on all major podcasting channels. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next episode.